On this episode of The Powers Project.
I will caution your listeners that if you are suffering from erectile dysfunction at a younger age, a lot of times that means you got a cardiac problem. That you are at risk for a heart attack or some other cardiac event.
Really? So
Yeah, erectile dysfunction has been called the canary in the coal mine for heart disease in men.
that's
So
good to know.
I would caution that cardiologist will tell you that, urologist will tell you that, and so that's not an uncommon finding.
And we're live. Orest, it's great to have you with me today. How you
Thank
doing?
you. I'm doing great. I'm doing wonderful.
Good, good. So I came across your podcast. I found it extremely interesting, and I thought, you know, as the old guy, even though I logically know I'm one, I refuse to believe that I am.
Hmm.
um, I found it interesting that you have a site for older guys that to teach them how to live life to the fullest, and you said something. You said you can't be young again, but you don't have to be old, and I agree with that 100%. So I came across your podcast. And I was like, I really want to talk to this guy because he's my kind of guy that that I think has a positive attitude and sees life pretty much the way I do. And so here you are. So I appreciate you being on the show today.
Well, thank you, thank you. At my podcast, Old Guy Talks to Me.com. My Our tagline is helping older guys create kick-ass lives for themselves and those that they love,
There you
and
go.
that's what I'm working to do every day. Some days better than other days, but that's the general direction. If I can go 2 steps forward and 1 step back, well, I'll be happy with that.
So I've got a question about that, but let me ask you this first. So you were a periodontal surgeon, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And so what in the hell? How did you go from being a periodontal surgeon to a podcaster?
Okay. I've always enjoyed being out there and speaking. Even when I was I used to I had done some lecturing and things like that when I was in private practice. So I knew there was always this part of me that always wanted to basically do this for a living and actually to do it professionally and monetize it, which I have not been very successful at this point yet. But that's the plan. That is the plan. And I am a self-admitted attention whore. And so there's no doubt about it. I love the sound of my voice. As a matter of fact, I record it and play it to myself all the time. No, I don't do that. But I just enjoy being out there and talking with people and visiting people. And that's kind of how I got into space. I started interviewing people before I had created my podcast. But I just put that stuff on my blog. But now it's actually a lot better to have it on a podcast. It gets a lot more coverage that way. And so I enjoy it. And most of the stuff that I talk about is based on self-interest. And it's really, we talk about anti-aging medicine, we talk about relationships, we talk about sex, uh, talk about menopause, we talk about all sorts of stuff. And I'm not always a goody two shoes. There will be times that I will discuss cigars and scotch and liquor and things like that.
Well, so your target audience and obviously are older guys. Now, don't do you find that to be somewhat of a challenge? Since what I have found is that a lot of older guys don't even know what the hell a podcast is, and when you try to explain it to them, they get this blank look on their face. And I go, look, think of it like radio, but you can stop it and start it when you want. So, do you find that to be a challenge?
Finding your audience is a challenge, and I will be the first to admit I'm not for everyone.
Right.
If you are accepting your life as it's delivered to you, on a daily basis and just kind of are okay with being buffeted about by circumstances, then I'm probably not your guy. But if you are interested in creating a better life for yourself, uh, so I think a lot of times that it's a different group, because I find men in our age group, and I don't know how old you are, Kurt. I'm 67.
Yeah, you're a little older than I am.
Okay, so I find that men seem to fall in a couple of categories here, maybe more than two, but I'm going to break them down just in two. The ones that are still interested in a better life, and the ones that's kind of just kind of like, okay, this is just the way it is. I'm old, and this is the way my parents were old, and I'll be old that way too. And the interesting thing about that is that mental state, that mental state can occur at age 40 as often as it does at age 60. It's absolutely amazing. And I used to hear this, it used to drive me. It used to drive me fucking nuts when I was in practice, because a lot of treatment, it requires a significant financial investment. And I would hear these people, and they were in their 40s, will say, "Oh well, if I was younger,
Yeah.
I would do that." And I'm thinking to myself, motherfucker, you are young. I'm sitting there, I'm looking at the 60, and not only that, but how many more years do you have to go? So you're gonna live like the next 30, 40 years like this,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like it just like it just didn't make any sense. And sometimes I would call people on it. Now I wouldn't use the F word with them, but not in my office. But I would call people on that, because if people say that, I'd ask them. I said, well, when are you planning on dying?
Yeah, exactly.
Have you picked out the casket yet?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I've noticed that right around at 30 years of age, I notice guys start getting like what you talked about, where they go, these are the cards that life dealt me, and they settle in and go, this is my life. And they don't think at any moment they could change that. And I've never been one to believe that. I don't give a damn how old you are. I believe even you at 67 years old, if you decided I want to become a lawyer, I guarantee you, and I know from your personality, you would become a lawyer.
Yeah.
I have no doubt that you could do that. Now, I'm not saying you want to. I'm just saying.
No, heaven forbid. I don't want to go back to school. Oh my
Exactly.
God. That's a horror movie.
But you have that mindset. I have that mindset, and I think that is the number one thing that matters. Is that what kind of mindset do you have? Like you said, do you think that you're going to be old like your parents were and your grandparents, and that 60 means that you're sitting on a rocking chair with a shotgun on your porch and yelling at kids to get off your yard, something like that? Or is it something where you start exploring the world and you start traveling and seeking out new adventures? And it comes down to just how you see yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It really does. I think it's a mindset thing.
Right.
And
That's
so
it.
people can develop that old mindset at almost any age, really.
Yeah.
So and it's a sad thing, because there's so much left to living, and there are so many things that you can do to enhance the quality of your life in these times significantly, and to deal with a lot of things, and they're all out there just waiting to be used. And it just boggles my mind. And it boggles my mind. The other thing that boggles my mind is that the people will, and we've all done this to a certain extent, where you consume information without taking action.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, we've all done that. I mean, I'm not going to say like, oh, I've never done that or whatever, blah, blah, blah. No, we've all done that. But I try to do that less and less. I mean, if I don't think I'm going to do anything with this information, I'm probably just going to bug out on something.
Right.
And I have. So I think, to take in information and then not do anything with it is another waste. It's a huge waste of time. And you see that fairly common, and people go, "Oh, it's not the right time," or blah blah blah. It's not, I'm not ready for it, or whatever. Just start.
Right. You know, Gary Vee's famous for telling people fucking quit whining. And he'll tell you, quit looking at my fucking videos, quit looking at everything else, and just do something. Just start. Doesn't matter what it is, just start. And that's the biggest thing. You know, I always joke around because the old GI Joe cartoon used to say, "Knowing's half the battle." You know, that's only half the battle. The other half is actually doing something with what you know, and that's the hard part. And most people don't act on it. And you're absolutely correct. And that's one of the reasons why I got into podcasting, is because I saw these young kids, and they're giving out advice as if these guys lived an entire life, and they don't know shit. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. 99% of the time, the advice they're giving is completely wrong. And I see older guys sitting there listening to them as if they know what the hell they're talking about. And I go, what is wrong with you people? You know, the experience that you have, the wisdom that you should have over a 19, 20-year-old kid should surpass that to realize this kid's full of shit and doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. Now, I don't blame the kid because he thinks he knows everything, you know, just like we did when we were kids. And so I don't blame him, but I go, there's no experience behind what you're saying. What you've done is you've gotten this information, and all you're doing is regurgitating it as if you actually lived it, and you haven't. You're not old enough to have lived through any of this.
Yeah, I think that's very true, because I've always told my kids, be careful who you take advice from. You know, have they actually done that? Have they actually achieved what you're trying to achieve that they're giving advice on? Because you're right, most of the time they have not. They don't have a clue. They're talking about some theory or this, and it's just pretty interesting. I mean, again, this sounds kind of elitist, but I don't take financial advice from anyone who lives in a house that's less expensive than mine. I mean, it's just kind of like, I don't take financial advice from somebody that drives up in a beat up Datsun, or that shows my age. Datsun, I think now they're called Nissans.
Yeah.
It's just like going to McDonald's and talking to a fat person, asking them for health advice, and they'll have it. They'll have the advice for you if you ask them. But it's just kind of like, be careful who you take advice from. And the worst thing is that people are so slick. They're so slick in marketing that they can fool you. I get fooled all the time. I get fooled all the time in terms of marketing advice on the internet and things like that. And I just sometimes go like, whoa, stop, and excuse me. So I think it's really important to be careful who you take advice from, especially make sure they've actually done the work. It's kind of like thinking, so I spent a lot of time in the anti-aging space, and so I am not going to take anti-aging advice from a fat physician.
Yeah.
Okay, that just ain't going to happen. And because it's kind of like, really, the physicians that I have in the anti-aging space are pretty studly, and so they walk and talk. Now, if you are a famous cardiac surgeon, I really don't care whether you're fat. It doesn't matter. You have a particular skill. You have a niche skill that has nothing to do with you making me healthy. You're there to fix my disease on that particular day. But your niche is not. You have a niche, and you don't. I'm looking for the best person in that regard. But again, physical advice, anti-aging advice, anti-aging medicine. Again, there's lots of charlatans out there in that space, and a lot of times they just don't know what the hell they're talking about.
You're absolutely right. And again, I won't take advice from younger guys who are 18, 19, 20 years old, because I'm a personal trainer. And these guys will get on and they've got a six pack. And I go, And these people are and they're giving out nutritional advice that they just really don't know a damn thing about what they're talking about. And these guys, these older guys will go in there and we'll look at him. They got a six pack. I go, because he's 18, 19 years old. The bitch is
Yeah.
eating pizza and drinking beer and he can still have a six pack. He doesn't have to
Well,
do anything for that.
and
So,
some of that is genetic.
right, exactly. And
Some
that's
of that is
exactly what it is.
genetic. And so it's not just it's not that. I remember in college I had a friend of mine who was a wrestler, and those guys are lean
Yeah.
because they have to make weight all the time.
Yep.
I mean, they walk around in a rubber suit to get the water out and spit in the bucket all day, just to make weight.
Yeah, I was a wrestler. I know that. And
Or
we used to have to go in the shower, turn the hot water on, and with that plastic suit on, and sweat our ass off, to make weight.
Yeah, and my his name was Troy, and Troy said, and there was a guy who had like big abs, and he was like 6-7% body fat, and he goes like, I'll never, I can work out all day. I'll never have abs like that. It's just not it's not how I'm built.
Right.
And so a lot of stuff people don't realize is genetic. Yeah. And the trainer, the young trainers, are always really interesting because I see them in the gym and they have old guys like me doing shit that they should not be doing.
Absolutely.
Like the biggest one is jump boxes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I watched this young guy who wasn't even in shape. I was like, how the hell are you a personal trainer, number one? You don't even look like you've trained, let alone you're definitely not in shape. And he was training an older guy who had him jumping from this ball onto a concrete ground back and forth. And this guy had to be in his late 60s. I go, jumping on a concrete floor like that is not good on the joints. Not to even mention, if he slips one little bit, he's going to fall and break his hip or something. I mean, it was just absolutely ridiculous. And you see this day in and day out in the gym with these young trainers.
Yeah.
And I just go, people go, how do you know you to get a good trainer? I go, get one that's been around for more than 20 years. It's like,
yeah, I used to work out. It was actually a very kind of funny gym. It was more of like the Eye of the Tiger gym. It was very basic. They're just like weights
I love those gyms.
and a stereo and stuff. And the it was an interesting assortment of people in there. It was funny because most of it, I don't know how well you know this, but I worked out actually with these guys for about 10 years, and most of them were gay, and being gay and being in shape is really critical in terms of in the dating market, and so they were always like just always on the cutting edge of what's really working. And I was the token heterosexual Caucasian Republican in the group because they were actually Democrat politicians that state legislators, city councilmen, things like that. And it was just really funny. But the guy who ran the gym used to be a former Mr. Hawaii, and he was in his mid-50s. So he's had every injury that any of us could have ever had in there. So when he spoke, he was speaking from that place of being injured.
Right.
And knowing exactly what it's like to work out as an older person.
Right. And not only that, but he knows how to train people so they don't get those injuries that he got. And that's something that you can't overlook. And young guys I see young guys train older guys like they train themselves, where they think that they don't give them any rest, that they just put them through one thing after another, and actually they put them through more shit than they can do themselves. And I get, what are you trying to do, kill the guy? Like, you're not going to make any money killing your clients. So.
Yeah, I was in my late 40s or early 50s, I can't remember, and I did one of those boot camps at the local gym I belonged to, and tore a meniscus. In surgery. Yeah. We were doing jump steps, jumping 2 steps up and down the staircase. And that was total insanity.
Yeah, I've done boot camp classes and stuff, but I also keep them sane so that people don't get hurt. I can honestly tell you, and over 30 years, I've never had one client ever get injured. And, and it's because I don't try to make people throw up, and I don't try to hurt people. I want them to have a good workout. They're ready for a sore, but I don't want them to not be able to move because there's this fallacy that people think that if you hurt them so bad, then you must have been a really good trainer because they're sore all over. It's like, that's not what good training's about.
Yep.
But you said something earlier about the whole mindset and about being young, and I do believe that. I remember seeing I was at an MMA match with a friend of mine, and these four guys were sitting next to us, and they were like in their mid-30s, and they were talking shit. They were sitting there going, "Oh, I do that, except that it's a young guy sport, blah blah." And I'm looking at them going, "What the hell are you talking about, young guys? You're in your 30s." And so I told my friend, I go, "You know what? I'm going to show people that anybody can do this." So I got to a gym and started training, and I went in and had my first MMA match when I was 50 years old. 50 years old.
Congratulations.
I fought a guy who was exactly half my age, 25. He was 6'6", outweighed me by 30 pounds, and I whooped his ass, and he retired because he couldn't believe a 50-year-old man. And the funny part is that when you're in the meeting in the morning, they'll say, "Okay, who here is over 30? Who here is over 40? And who here is 50 or over?" And I'm the only one with my hand up, and everybody's turned around looking at me like I'm a leper or something. Like, what the hell are you doing? What's that old guy doing here? He's in the wrong place. So, but it was only because I had the mindset like you. If I had the mindset that other people have, that like those guys that sat there, I can only imagine what they're that's been over 10 years. So now they're in their mid 40s. I can only imagine what kind of shape they're in and what kind of life they're living if they believed that back 10 years ago,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no,
So,
I'm sure their life is a fraction of what it could be.
so what do you like? What are some of the things you do to stay healthy and stay young? Again, we already know your mindset's there. What else do you do? I know you drink scotch and you smoke cigars. What are some of the good things?
Well, you always need to have some cigars, especially in this dying day and age. You need to have a cigar, and scotch or vodka or wine or maybe tequila on a special occasion.
Yeah,
All
tequila.
those things, tequila, yeah. Uh, you know, Part of it is working out. A big part of it is working out. And it's challenging now because a lot of the gyms are closed, or the ones that are open want you to wear a mask while you're working out, which is really kind of tough.
Yeah.
you know, uh, so it's challenging. But I think working out on a regular basis is one of the first things that I would say someone needs to do to stay young.
So what?
You'll feel better. You're going to have better mobility, you're going to have better strength, you're going to have better stamina throughout a day, all those things. And you have to, obviously, you're a trainer, so I'm not going to, I'm going to say you kind of have to mix up aerobics and resistance training. And you don't do too much. You can't do 7 days of resistance training, and you don't want to do 7 days of aerobics. And
Right.
so I usually do 3 and 4. And on the fourth, I run 3 days a week. I wouldn't call it a run, more of a shuffle. But I'll call it. I'll be generous. If you saw a video, it'd probably be a shuffle. But it is uphill on the way out. And so do that. And the resistance training, which I really miss being able to go into the gym. I had some injuries, some bicep tendon tears I had to deal with, which were really I kept on re-injuring it. And I think one of the silver linings of this whole lockdown has been the fact that I haven't been able to go to the gym and re-injure
Right.
myself.
So you're forced to let it heal.
I was forced to let it heal, and I tried a lot of things to get it to heal, and it kept on getting better and better, and I kept on thinking it was done, but it wasn't completely healed. And so now I think I feel like I'm completely healed. So right now, I think it's just working out. I'm trying. Trying. That's a bad word. I'm training
Right.
for a Spartan race.
Yes, I was going to talk to you about that. So what are you doing to train for this Spartan race? So you let your bicep heal, and was it your tricep as well?
No, just my bicep.
Oh, okay, your
Bicep.
bicep
It was
healed.
a
Okay,
bicep. It was actually a bicep tendon, which is really
okay,
hard to heal.
yeah.
Um, and so right now, the only things I'm doing is I'm doing. I've gotten myself up to 3 sets of 30 burpees.
Okay, that's still damn good.
Yeah, yeah, uh, yeah. It doesn't sound like a lot, but
Yeah,
folks, if you do 10 and call me
right.
in the
I was
morning.
going to say it only doesn't sound like a lot when it's people who've never done a burpee. That's why.
Yeah, yeah.
It's one.
So it's taken me a few several months to get myself back up to 30 burpees, and so I do 3 sets of 30 burpees. I do 3 sets of 12 push-ups, and that's really about all I'm doing right now. I need to start incorporating some stuff. I need to start incorporating some pull-ups somewhere, and also some things to work on my grip strength. Because I was working on my grip strength before when we were starting this actually in the gym, in terms of just hanging grip strength, because you need a lot of that in a Spartan race. And so I was working on building up my grip strength, and these are things that are not going to happen overnight. It's not like, oh, four
Right.
weeks I'm going to get,
Yeah.
it's going to take a while to get at that. So I'm slowly looking at ways to increase my resistance training using stuff. We did have for a while there. Did have the half-gallon Tito's bottles of vodka that we used as weights here in the house when everybody was locked down altogether.
I,
Uh, so that's kind of the one thing. I would say, Kurt, the other thing is that uh, be active, do shit. And so we try to be active, and it doesn't have to be all. It's not, and it doesn't have to be exercise. One of the things that we did during this whole lockdown, when everybody was kind of locked down in their house for a little bit over 2 months, is that we never. My wife, she, we all were starting to lose track of the days.
yeah.
And what day is it? Because every day was the same. And so she started this thing fairly early on in the process where both my daughters were living with us. They came back from college. And so we had, in the morning, she would put out a Post-it note on a kitchen counter of the day of the week, the date, and what was on for dinner. And it wasn't a requirement, but basically everybody could do what they wanted to during the day. You're just kind of on your own. But at about 6 o'clock, we all planned on having dinner together. And the funny thing is, we had 48 meals without a repetition.
Wow.
Yeah, we had 48 meals without a repetition.
I'm the
So
opposite. I can say I've had 48 meals with no change. Very
okay, so
much the same thing.
yeah, no, we had 48 meals, and we actually ate pretty well. Um, the other thing that I'm going to say is I think be careful about how you handle the relationship you're in.
And what do you mean by that?
I the longer you get into a relationship, the more for granted you tend to take people.
Definitely.
And so I think you need to be cognizant that you have a responsibility to bring some energy and life into that relationship. And so I think that's one of the things that really is important. And that's not just sex.
Right.
Okay, it's more than that. Now it certainly leads to that on some occasions, but it's just to bring some intimacy and some warmth and some love. And I'll tell the guys, and if there's women listening, they can tell their guy. But there's three things. I'm only going to give you two. I'm not only going to give you one, because if you opt in, you'll get the other two. Um, but once a month, and I put it in my Outlook, so it pops up as a reminder. But actually, I don't even need a reminder because I've been doing it for several years now, so it's not really important. It's not that I forget about it. Once a month, go to the supermarket, and for $9.99, you can buy a dozen red roses.
Yeah.
Okay, and don't do it on a weekend. Don't wait for a Hallmark holiday like Valentine's Day or whatever. Actually, we don't celebrate Valentine's Day. We just kind of blow it off because it's an overrated holiday as far as we're concerned. And
Right.
why go to overcrowded restaurant with an overpriced menu where you're being shuffled through, and buy flowers and put them in a vase. And there's a trick is you got to cut the trick is to last longer. And I'm talking about that. I'm not lasting longer there, but I'm talking about having the flowers last longer. Is that you cut the flowers at an angle, and you put some maybe a shot of vodka, a little bit of white sugar, and whatever that powder mix it to get into the water, and it makes the flowers last longer and they bloom. And I will tell you, you do that if you haven't done that in your relationship, it'll confuse the fuck out of the person you're in a relationship with. They're like
Yeah, they might go like, "What the hell did you do wrong, Orest?"
Yeah, exactly. I actually had one of the times I was at the supermarket. It's Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. and I'm buying red roses, and the cashier looks at me and she goes, "Oh, you must have really pissed someone off."
Exactly.
I go, no. But you do that, and it's just appreciated, and it's a simple thing to do. $9.99.
Yeah.
It's not, and get the vase at the supermarket usually costs like $12, so you can give a vase that you reuse.
Right.
You don't have to spend like the $40 on the arrangement there. You can just do it yourself, and bring it home and put it on the nightstand next to that special person in your life. And it's a thing that is appreciated. It is appreciated. You are showing your appreciation, and you'll get appreciated later.
Yeah, it definitely goes a long way.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question, but before I go there, I want to go back to your workout, because I know people are going to be listening. They're going to go, okay, give me something more specific, because obviously you're not a beginning athlete. I mean, if you're training for a Spartan race, this isn't your first rodeo. So I know there are going to be people out there go, all right, I'm 60 something years old, or I'm 7 years old. What can I do? What kind of starting routine can I do to just start getting back in shape?
Well, I think one of the things that, Kurt, I think it's hard to train if you don't have a goal in mind.
Agreed.
It's easier to train for something. Like it's easier to train for a 5K or a 10K or whatever. So it's easier when you're training for something. So I think give yourself some sort of objective to train for. The other thing is that there's so many programs out there now. As an older person, I think you got to be very careful about getting too stiff. I am after I've been powerlifting for a good 20 years, so I'm stiffer than I would like to be. And I actually got my bicep tendon injury was in a yoga class, of all things.
Really?
Yeah, it was one of those reach over and it hurt, and that was the first level of injury, and I was always asymmetrical. Always felt asymmetrical after that injury, and then it got injured as a result of a really strenuous workout. So be careful about that. Find something that's fairly easy, an easier way into something. Don't think that you're going to be able to do something that someone's been in there working for years. I mean, I was I was for me, I was lifting stuff that I was, it was a little bit of the ego thing, because I'd walk over there to those weights and people would like kind of go like, what the fuck he's doing over there? So I was bench pressing 100, 110 pound dumbbells.
That's very
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And that was at age 65.
Yeah.
I was doing that, and so but I didn't get the first time when I first started a few decades before, I was huffing and puffing at 35, and I thought I hit nirvana at 60. Yeah, at 60-pound dumbbells. So it's a lot of things. The other thing is that be careful. I listened to a podcast once with a gentleman by the name of Chris Summers, and he is the I don't know, or was for about 20 years or whatever, the men's Olympic gymnastic coach. And he does a lot of stuff on body weight exercises. And there's one thing that really has always struck me that he said during the interview. He said it takes 90 days to build muscle. And he says it takes 210 days to grow soft tissue, tendons and ligaments. And he says why people that are getting back into fitness, why they get injured is that their muscles outgrow their soft tissues that support them. And that always struck me. So you got to be really cognizant. I had a friend of mine who just an incredible, miraculous turnaround in terms of his whole body, physique, and health, and things like that. And he was actually diagnosed as diabetic, and that was like, okay, well, he decided he was going to turn his life around, which he has, and he stayed that way for a number of years. But I remember he was getting into lifting and heavier. And I mean, I worked out within the gym every once in a while, and I told him, I said, you need to slow down because you are just what you've done. Where I see you've kind of come and gone is that you are outpacing your soft tissues, and that's how you're going to get injured. So you got to make sure that you and when Summers was talking about it, he was talking about 20-year-old gymnasts. He wasn't talking about like 50, 60-year-old athletes. He was talking about so you got to be real careful about how you approach that whole soft tissue, because the soft tissue is a thing that's going to more likely you might get a cramp, but that's going to go away. But the soft tissue injury is really hard to deal with. It happens easily, and it's hard to heal. It's really hard to heal.
Yeah.
There's a number of strategies you can try at the same time. There's a lot of stuff in the regenerative medicine space that you can try, but it's a challenge. And by the way, I'm supposed to read this since we're getting into some advice here. I need to read my medical disclaimer.
Oh,
I forgot to do that. So it's a little late, folks, but this is information only. Consult with an appropriate professional before starting any program. Do not be stupid. You are responsible for your own shit. The old guy is a capitalist and non-socialist weasel. If he's promoting stuff, you can be sure he wants to be compensated. You can rest assured the old guy only promotes stuff he believes in, and you will have different results. So Sue, the IP lawyer, said that will work. She wouldn't have written it that way, but she said that works.
Well, that's excellent advice that you gave, and I would just add to that is that one of the mistakes I see older guys make is they remember what they were used to do when they were in high school. And they think they can still do what they used to do in high school. They remember the old days, and I'm talking about guys who are usually in their 40s. They'll go, "Oh yeah, I could bench 225 when I was in when I was in college or something." And the first thing they do is try to go back and bench 225 and then kill themselves. So I would say, use some common sense and realize, 20 years or more have passed since you were in college or high school, and use some common sense. And the other thing is that you said it, be active. And being active means anything. That means go for a walk after dinner, for crying out loud. You would be surprised how beneficial just walking after dinner can be for you, and how many calories you can burn, and how good you'll feel just by simply walking. I'm not talking about doing a fast-paced walk. I'm just saying start off just walking. And you're right, just doing something and being active will go a long ways for them.
Sure.
So
absolutely.
So let's go back to the relationship thing. More and more these days, we see a lot of older guys who are now single for whatever reason. The divorce rate in this country is over 50%. And so we see a lot of older guys who are single. And I don't know about you, but what I've noticed is that a lot of older guys have no self-esteem, they have no self-worth, and they don't think they have anything to offer. And when I talk to these guys and go, look, you're looking at it from the wrong perspective and the wrong mindset. And you need to understand that you have value, but you've got to believe it. If you don't believe it, no one else is. No one's going to see you. No one's going to see you as a confident person if you don't see yourself as a confident person. So what kind of advice do you have for older guys who are single or who seem to be struggling with, having confidence in themselves?
Well, the whole first of all, I think the thing is I think that's a problem in whether you're single or whether you're in a relationship.
That's true. Yeah.
It can be both. So maybe if you happen to be divorced or whatever, however you end up single, that may be just kind of like the final thing. But I think many people still are suffering from that. And first of all, that mindset of first of all, that's not very attractive. It ain't gonna
Right.
get you. I mean, that's the one thing, go back to the mindset. That mindset is not particularly attractive.
That's correct.
It doesn't say like, oh, it's not a person magnet.
Right. Well, then
Uh,
I even tell them, I go, would you be attracted to someone like you? And they think about it like, no, I guess I wouldn't. Exactly.
yeah,
Well, no one's attracted to weakness, not that I'm
yeah,
aware of.
yeah. Unless you're some sort of crazy psycho
Right.
enabler, you know. So that's kind of an interesting phenomenon. I would, and again, I need to refer back to my medical disclaimer. There is I'm going to call it, in my opinion, is a crisis of maleness in the United States and in the world in general. And a lot of it has to do with testosterone deficiency.
I agree.
Men are men because of testosterone. That's just that's hormonally. I mean, outside of anatomical things, men are men because of testosterone physiologically, and it affects them in terms of their self-esteem, uh, their outlook on life. It's incredible. Antidepressant, lean body mass, keeping off of fat, in bone density, and also libido, interest in sex. All those things are directly affected by that. And the statistics are pretty incredible in terms of what's going on in testosterone in men. Is that generationally testosterone levels in men have been dropping. And there's a study called the male normative aging study. It was done in the Northeast, actually a fairly large sample of people, and they looked at the levels from, I'm looking at here, from 1987 to 2005, and precipitous drop in the levels of testosterone. There's another study that talks about that that men's testosterone drops, starting that they measured in the 80s, drops 1% a year. So if you are looking at a 60-year-old man in the 1990s, he would have had about 15% more testosterone than a person today who's 60 years old. And so those are things that are showing up in lots of ways in terms of that. And so a lot of this has to do with things that are going on in the environment, our sedentary lifestyle, but also there's things that are way beyond our control in terms of a concept called endocrine disrupting compounds, which are really affecting the production of testosterone in men. And this is only occurring in the industrialized world. And it's
Right.
happening in Europe, it's happening in Australia, New Zealand, but it's only happening in the excuse me, in the industrialized world. So it's an interesting phenomenon, and it's also one that is affecting younger and younger men in a lot of significant ways. One of the statistics is that when you look at things like erectile dysfunction, in the 90s, the reported rate of erectile dysfunction was 5%, and now it's basically over 26%. So those are things that are showing up in a lot of different ways, and the whole testosterone thing is actually a very alarming thing, because it's not just testosterone that's being affected and causing these changes. And I would encourage you, your listeners, to go to my podcast, oldguytalkstome.com, and listen to there's 2 interviews that have to deal with testosterone. One is with Keith Nichols, who's probably one of the most knowledgeable practicing doctors that treats men with testosterone, and a person who's a researcher that works with him named Scott Howell. And so it's a problem that is occurring and becoming more and more common. And then one of the things that manifests is in erectile dysfunction, which is, interestingly, when you talk to your urologist, and I have some a buddy of mine that I've interviewed is a urologist, and he talks about the fact that younger and younger men are showing up in his clinics with erectile dysfunction. Yes. And it's an interesting phenomenon. There's a term, not necessarily a pleasant term. I don't know, maybe you've heard it. Soy boys.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that, because you just hit it right on the head. One of the main reasons, besides the fact that we're castrating ourselves to materials that we're using, like in plastic straws and everything else that we have in our environment that's doing this to us, is that this low-fat diet that we've had for decades, that is one of the main reasons why men have low testosterone. As soon as you put a guy on a red meat diet and introduce fat back into his diet, his testosterone will skyrocket. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you this. And you're also right in the fact that doctors now look at, for guys our age, that 600 is where we want to be. But 40 years ago, it was double that, and that was the norm. But now they think that if you're at 1,200, then that's dangerous, and it's not.
Yeah.
We've got doctors who don't know what they're talking about when it comes to testosterone.
It's the right now what it is what's called normal is not optimal.
Right. Exactly.
It's just like you would not want to be the average of a typical body mass.
Right.
You know, yeah. So, and actually, Scott and I, in that discussion, actually, and also with Keith, we go into a lot of that detail about what do the numbers actually mean, and that's the challenge, because most physicians will treat to those ranges that exist, and a lot of the knowledgeable doctors have a whole different concept about how to treat. The other thing I'll tell you that many of your listeners will not know is that. There's a thing called there's another study that came out of Hebrew University. So this is not like some tinfoil hat conspiracy shit. You know, and they looked at thousands of studies at sperm levels in men, and they pulled out the ones where they thought the studies were bad. And it took them several years to actually write this paper, because there was so much data that they had to look at and analyze in terms of for its value, for its that's really truly scientific value. And what their analysis, their summary off this paper, is that between 1973 and 2011. Sperm counts in men are down by 50%.
And what do they attribute that to?
Endocrine disrupting compounds.
Oh,
shit.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they factored out other things like diabetes, all sorts of other stuff. But the scary part about this statistic is that they're projecting that the slope of this decline is not abating. It's not changing. And by their prediction is that by 2050, most men in the industrialized world will be infertile.
Wow. You know,
that's only 30 years from now.
That makes so much sense, because I'll tell you, back in the 80s, I believe it was, we have a lake here just outside of Orlando. It's called, there's a town called Apopka. And Lake Apopka was known for just being full of alligators. And any if you have a body of water in Florida, you can, even if it's a pool, you can almost guarantee there's at least one alligator in there. That might be a slight exaggeration, but this lake used to be full of alligators. And then all of a sudden they noticed that there was a decline in the alligator population. And it
Hmm.
was because it had become so polluted
Sure.
that it actually shrunk the penis up on the male alligator, and they couldn't penetrate the females. And so the alligator population had dwindled. Once they cleaned that lake up, the population came back in force. And so
Yeah.
what you're saying, it makes so much sense.
Yeah. Well, to go along with that is in this other paper, uh, they talk a little bit about a similar phenomenon, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that because of some of these things that are going on, that men's testicles are not descending at the proper time.
Hmm.
So basically, they're not producing the same amounts of testosterone they would have in the past, and also sperm. So that is an anatomical thing that is occurring now. And I interviewed gynecologist, and she was telling me that she has a fertility side of her practice, and she was telling me that about that the number of, it used to be a certain number, and I can't remember what the ratio is right now, of female to male issues in terms of who cannot conceive. Is the issue with the issue with the woman, or is the issue with the man? And that number of the issue being with the man is going up.
Yeah, that's not good, obviously.
No,
Uh,
no.
yeah. So what do they see as a solution for this, or do they see a solution?
I think a lot of people, some scientists are going, okay, well, we'll just do test tube babies. You know, there's I know there's a few private equity groups that are investing in sperm banks
Okay.
on the long haul. And I think that's kind of an interesting phenomenon, because some of the smart money people are investing in that. And so I'm not sure what the answer is to that, because it's almost hard. It's almost impossible unless you're like, off the grid completely. It's almost impossible to avoid all this stuff.
Yeah. Do you think
I,
that? Do you think? You know, I know you tend to be a little bit more on the right, but do you think that these leftist groups, or some of them, and not the extreme ones, obviously, but the ones who are pushing for change, and not having certain uh, byproducts in our food, or having certain um, what's the word I'm looking for, uh, elements in our straws, in our glasses, or in our containers, like milk, milk jugs are all plastic, in our plastic and stuff, that all seeps into our milk. It's seeps into our water, that kind of stuff. I mean, do you see maybe changing the laws that these things aren't allowed into our system, so that we can kind of get rid of it? Or do you think that's a losing battle?
I don't think it's a losing battle, but it may be, in some instances, it may be too late. Um, but I think that people are more, obviously, people are more conscious about the plastics that they use, that they not be made of certain things, all those things. But it's just so prevalent. And then we also have people that are really concerned about their health in terms of being careful, and then you have a whole group of people that don't give a
Yeah,
shit.
but yeah, they don't.
You know,
That's
uh,
that.
you know,
Yeah.
and so I like my bad food every once in a while, but I try not to have it every day.
You said not. What'd you say? Something. You called him something socialist. What'd you call him? Weak or weenie socialist, or whatever. You said I'm a capitalist, and
Oh, weasel, weasel, weasel.
weasel socialist. So here's the thing: is that I'm a capitalist as well. However, I tend to consider myself to be a democratic socialist, because I do believe that that we should provide for those in our society who may be less fortunate. However, in saying that, I'm also of the firm belief that if you're not going to take care of your damn self, nobody else should take care of you. So if you're not going to eat healthy and you're not going to do the things to get yourself in shape and to live a healthy lifestyle, why the hell should everybody else be paying for it? And I
Mm-hmm.
don't agree with that. So I'm kind of in the middle. I definitely see your point, and I believe that we all should take responsibility for our own actions.
Yeah, well, no, I think that we should be taking care of people that are um, that truly can't take care of themselves. But I would say that that's probably a lot smaller group than are being
Right,
taken care of.
right.
And we got a lot of people that have grown up with the whole concept of being taken care of. We've had a lot of people that have grown up with the whole concept of being victims,
Yep.
and the whole of victim culture, and a lot of it just they don't have any business being a victim.
No, they don't. But don't you think, seriously, and I said this the other day, don't you think that, I know there's going to be some pissed off people when I say this, but don't you think that this whole sense of entitlement, the original generation that started this was our parents? Because here's now, wait, listen,
I
hear me
agree.
out here. Okay,
I
good.
agree.
Okay, good. I thought you were going to go, what? Because I love my mother to death, and I'll sit there and go, well, she wasn't one of them. But that the case, the seriousness was she really wasn't. She never ever was a victim. But what I see is older people who exactly play that role as a victim and always feel entitled. And I go, okay, so you were the kids of the greatest generation ever, which was that generation who fought World War II. And so they wanted to make your life easier. They wanted you to have more and have a better life than them. And in the process of doing that, they spoiled your asses, and it's only continued to get worse generation after generation, to now, like you said, everybody wants to play a victim, and you have no business being a victim. Now, of
Yeah.
course, we're generalizing. Of course, there's
Oh, yeah. There's
exceptions to
always
that.
there's always the exceptions to the rule, but
Right.
at the same time, that there's there's a big celebrity factor of being a victim,
Yes.
and so you can tell your sad story. It doesn't have to be true. But you can tell your sad story, and people will feel sorry for you, which will make you feel good, so it makes you want to tell that story, probably embellish it over time. And you have so many things where things are just not what they were initially supposed to be, and you find out as you look into things that as time evolves, that all of a sudden, oh, that didn't happen. Well, that
Right.
didn't happen, and
Right.
that didn't happen. And so I think a lot of that has to do with that whole calling people out on facts. And the other thing I think your feelings are wonderful. Go ahead, enjoy
Right.
your feelings. But first of all, I'm not going to be held hostage by your feelings.
Right.
And two, I'm going to ask you sometimes, are your feelings actually based on facts?
Right. That's
Yeah, but I'm not going to be held hostage. But if you are triggered by me, well, that's your fucking problem. Uh,
Well, I always like to tell them, look, because everyone thinks that their opinion there's respect, and I go, your opinion doesn't deserve respect, especially when your opinion's based in belief and feelings. And I go, there's no facts or truth to it. I go, I respect opinions that are based in fact and truth. And I said, so if you have an issue with me, it's not me. You have an issue with the truth, and that's where your issue lies, and that usually shuts them up. But you're right. Everyone now, because of social media, has an opinion, and they feel the need to state it all the time.
mhm.
And one of the things I noticed is what you were saying, is that these people who play victim, they love the attention. And you would think, why would anybody want that kind of attention? But I believe there's so many lonely people out there that any kind of attention is good attention to them, and they don't
Yeah,
care, just as long as somebody's paying attention to them. And it's
yeah. That
unfortunate.
that and people use their feeling as cry bullies. It's just like you look at that and you're going like, wow,
Yeah.
you're the one who feels threatened. you're sitting there yelling at someone, screaming at them. I think they're the ones who should feel threatened, not you.
Right. Well, you're right, and we've just gone overboard with everything. I remember somebody saying something about, if you call a trans person, and I'm all about rights for trans people, but they said if you call a trans person by the wrong pronoun, that's violence. And I go, no, that's not violence. It might be a dick move, but it's not violence. And what you're doing is minimizing that word violence, and you're minimizing those who've actually suffered real violence.
Yeah.
And
You almost want to go like, here, let me show you the difference.
Yeah, exactly. We've gone, and we, in both sides, the left and the right, both play this game, and they both go to the extremes to get their, to try to get people on their side. And I go, you're just being ridiculous now. And I know that there are more people like us who are in the middle who can see this. And I just keep saying, we need to take the damn mics away from these idiots, because they don't speak for either side. And so you have people on the right thinking the left are idiots because they hear the extreme left is talking, and you have people on the left thinking the people on the right are idiots because you hear the extreme right people talking. And I go, but neither one of those groups are talking for the majority of the people on either side. And we need to realize that, and we need to take back the conversation and discuss it among civil, sane people, who can sit down and have a discussion and go, yeah, that makes sense. That's common sense, But that's why I'm glad that there's a podcast like yours out there. That's why I wanted to do my podcast, is because I said, there's just too much idiocy going on out there. And not that that I'm going to always be right. Most of the time I am, but
Well, I'm gonna up that one. I am almost always right.
Yeah.
I'm better than most. I'm almost always.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get back to the testosterone thing. So what's your take on testosterone therapy?
I think that every man should consider it. Should at least try it.
I agree.
And I think you need to figure it out. I think you need to find a good doctor. And in my interviews, we talk about how to find a good doctor. But I think every man should consider it. It's a life changer. I know that several of my friends have used it, and I know that when I've gotten off of it, I've noticed a dramatic difference. And just for multiple reasons, I need to get off. Actually, most of the time, this actually has to do with traveling internationally. Because even though everything I have has a prescription, one bad day with a custom agent in a foreign country can ruin a week of your vacation. Yeah. And so I just generally tend not to travel with it. But I just think that find a good doctor, educate yourself by understanding what the numbers mean. And I think that's an important part.
And what do you say? Because before the show, I talked to you about the fact that there's a group of attorneys out there who want to sue the pharmaceutical companies because there were certain men who had heart attacks or whatever while they were on testosterone. They were trying to blame the testosterone, and you and I both,
Yeah, that's all not. Lawyers are lawyers, and they'll do their stuff, and there's always there's always money, and there's nothing that you can do to keep yourself from being sued.
Right.
I mean, that's just the nature of what it is, and that's I don't give a lot of credence to that. They might make a few cases here and there. I don't think there's actually more and more science coming out on the other side, because there's two studies that were quote unquote famous or infamous, and the data on these studies is just so horrible. One of them has actually had I want to call The Walking Dead. Every person in that study was basically just a few months away from being dead because of severe heart issues. And and then another one of the other studies that everybody refers to, and right now I can't remember the names of studies. It's been discovered that they actually had women in their sample.
What?
Yeah, 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 yeah. So, yeah, I have a friend of mine who's really knowledgeable in this space. He's written a couple books. It's called the Testosterone Optimization Therapy Bible, and it's a book that's it's about 400 pages. It goes really into detail on it, and it's got like about 700 plus scientific references. So it's not just like an opinion.
Yeah.
It's not an opinion packed book.
What?
And but Jay goes into it. I just actually I found out yesterday that I was wondering how he's such a smart guy. Well, he has an eidetic memory. He told me that yesterday. And I was like, oh man, no wonder I can't keep up with you.
What's his name?
Jay Campbell.
Jay Campbell. Okay, and what's the name of the book?
Here, let me just get you the exact title here. Okay, the title of his book is The Testosterone Optimization Therapy Bible, and he's written that. He's got another one. He's updating it because this one's about 4 years old, but he's updating it. But it's a really it's a great book to read where he goes into a lot into the weeds on it.
I'd love to talk to him more about that because this is, obviously I'm very much on the same page with you about staying healthy.
I just lost your sound.
Oh, can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so I'd really like to talk to him because I'm very much like you, where I want to get that information out to people about what things you do to stay healthy, and to be able to have a better quality life. And I believe testosterone is part of that as we get older.
Oh,
And it
without
will
a doubt.
definitely help. What kind of, if you don't mind me asking, you don't have to tell me if you don't, but what kind of doses are you taking of testosterone?
I'm actually not going to get into
Okay,
that.
all right, gotcha. I completely understand.
And because I think that one of the things that a lot of the really good doctors that are in this space they don't treat to numbers. They actually treat to symptoms.
That's smart, yeah.
And so Keith talks about this, and Scott and a number of people. They don't treat to a number. Actually, this treating to numbers is there was a long time that there was no such thing as lab tests and blood tests. They were actually fairly. It's a fairly. I won't say it's not like within the last 10 years, but there was a time that people actually just treated towards symptoms. And so that's really what a lot of the really good doctors will treat you. Now they're going to have a protocol that they're going to be into and specifically, but they treat to symptoms rather than to actually a lab number. Because I know that my experience with talking to men has been that they can be in significant different ranges in terms of their lab values, but their symptoms will abate, or they'll feel a lot better, and that's a highly variable physiological reaction that they have.
That's interesting. I definitely want to hear more about that, because I think that's probably the way to treat people, instead of just simply by the numbers and act as if everybody's should be the same, because I don't believe that. So we know that one of the things as we get older, the older we get, the more we have to deal with is erectile dysfunction. And of course, erectile dysfunction can lead to lower self-esteem and lower self-worth, and not feeling like you're as valuable as you once were. Does testosterone help with that? What kind of advancements have they had in doing with that, besides just the little blue pill and things of that nature?
Sure. And so erectile dysfunction is something that I've become very familiar with and looked into quite a bit, and obviously out of self-interest. And everybody goes, "Oh, not me, not me." Well,
Right.
you're lying, motherfucker. Especially if you're in your 60s or 70s, because statistically, what it is 40% of men in their 40s, 50% of men in their 50s, 60% of men in their 60s, and 70% of men in their 70s have some form. It can be from just a mild to a very severe form. It can be, some people call a term erectile dissatisfaction, and that may be not being able to do the things that you were able to do in your 20s, 30s, and younger, and so that has to be a factor, and it's becoming a significantly more pronounced and affecting actually it's affecting a lot of younger men. But the things that you got to look at first of all, I think is your general health. Are you fat?
Right.
Can we still say fat?
I
Uh,
look. I say I go. I don't believe in fat shaming, but I also don't believe in fat
yeah. So
congratulating them and going, yeah, you're
you're
congratulations, you're
wonderful.
fat. Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that those are things you look at your general health issue. I will caution your listeners that if you are suffering from erectile dysfunction at a younger age, a lot of times that means you got a cardiac problem. That you are at risk for a heart attack or some other cardiac event.
Really. So
You know, erectile dysfunction has been called the canary in the coal mine for heart disease in men.
that's
So
good to know.
I would caution that cardiologist will tell you that, urologist will tell you that, and so that's not an uncommon finding. So as far as once you get past that, you look at your testosterone level, and then okay, then you enter a whole different world with erectile dysfunction. And I'm going to pitch two things, shamelessly pitching. First of all,
Please do.
I will send you a link to this one product, which is a at-home therapy for erectile dysfunction. I'll go into that later in just in a few minutes here. And also, I have a digital information product where I interview experts and doctors on what I want to call five cutting edge medical therapies to treat erectile dysfunction. And all this is nothing cheesy that you find in the back of a magazine. Uh, these are these are or on the internet. These are all things that require a physician or are FDA cleared. And so this is nothing nothing cheap. And as a general rule, I stay with stuff that is requires a physician. So the once you okay, so first of all, what happens is first line of defense is of course the Cialis, the Viagra, and all that stuff. And sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Uh, there's different windows of opportunity. Now, Cialis is longer. I think it's like 10 hours plus or minus, depending on you. Viagra is like 2 to 4 hours, and heaven forbid that, one of you falls asleep and, or you had that extra cocktail and, well, things aren't working so well. So those over a period of time, what happens is they a lot of times they don't work or stop working or don't work as well, and then you up the dosage and do all that stuff. There are uh, several, and I go into in my digital information product is called myjunkdoesnotwork.com.
myjunkdoesnotwork.com. Okay.
Okay, and so you opt in there, and you get one interview that I did with the doctor for free, and then it's you get some others, but those are paid. And the reality of it is that most of these doctors are the good doctors in this space are cash. They don't take insurance. And so a consultation with one of these doctors can run you $200 or $300. So just for a few bucks, you get me sitting down at great length, not unlike this, and talking with the doctor about the therapies or an expert in that space. So the therapies are one is there's a shockwave device. You hear it advertised, the shockwave. You hear it on the radio all the time, and on the internet. And those are in-office treatments, and they run several $1,000s, and you have to go multiple times to the office. There's also something that's called the P shot, which is platelet-rich plasma, and that's where you take your own body's healing components, and you take your own blood, you spin it down, and then you spin it down in a centrifuge and pull out the platelet-rich portion, which has a lot of the stuff that will cause blood vessels and blood vessels to grow back, because a lot of that has to do with blood back. There's also The there is also a at home, and I'll send you the link to this. There's an at home shockwave therapy device that just came on the market a few months ago,
Oh, really?
and yeah, and so it's a very interesting device. It is also being you can buy it directly from the manufacturer, and it is also going to be sold through doctors that are contracted with Gainswave, which is the major shockwave therapy company. They're going to be selling that through their offices. So this is an FDA cleared device that you can use the shockwave therapy at home for a fraction of a cost. For a fraction of the cost of what it costs you to go into the office, and you can just use it as in comfort at home and do that. There is another one that is a peptide. There are peptides, and I'm not so sure that those peptides are still available because there's been a shakeout in the peptide industry about what's allowed or not allowed these days. And but that one's kind of an interesting thing because it doesn't work. Most of the three others I worked on basically work on increasing blood flow to the penis and maintaining it there. uh, this one is actually works on your brain neurotransmitters, and so it actually is more of an aphrodisiac, and it's interesting because it works both on men and women.
Oh,
so so
okay.
you usually got to make sure that you're on the same wavelength
Right.
on that one, or else it could be very frustrating a few hours.
For one or the other.
Or for one or the other, or whatever. So you got to be on the same wavelength on that one. And then the last one is kind of the most invasive, but it has the highest success rate. It's actually in the high 90%. Is the penile pump, and that is when everything else. A lot of times people might just do that because it's very very high effectively, or the other things have not worked, or you may have had different. You may have had some damages, like a prostate that has been removed, or prostate biopsy. Again, I'm not a physician, so you need to consult with a well-trained urologist. But that's the one that works for most, shall I say, most resistive ED to therapy. And so those are the five that I go into great detail with doctors on very specific things.
Well, I mean, it's it's a great service that you're providing, because one of the things is by having a podcast like this where people can come, like men can come and listen to this in the privacy of their home and not be embarrassed. And I think that's important that something like this is available to them so that they can learn about these things from you by going to myjunkdoesnotwork.com and learn about these things, because I know a doctor who actually went down to a gym and he thought, oh, I can talk to guys about testosterone therapy and I can talk to them about erectile dysfunction and how they can come to my clinic and I can help them with that. Not one person came up to his table, and I go, because guys are not going to admit that they have erectile dysfunction in front of one another. That's just not going to
It's
happen.
not going to happen. Yeah.
So I go, that's not where you go to get these guys, to get their attention. So you providing something like this, I think has a great service to it, because now guys can go, like I said, to the privacy of their own home and look in their computer and look at your website and find out this pertinent information that can actually help them. So kudos to
Yeah.
you.
Thank you. There's so many things, and we just don't talk about men's issues.
Yeah.
I interview doctors and experts on menopause, and what a lot of guys don't understand is what happens in terms of for women in terms of vaginal degeneration, and how serious of an issue is, and how serious urinary incontinence is for women, and also the painful sex and other things that can really affect the quality of that intimate relationship. And
Yeah.
I think more people understand what's going on. There's opportunities, and and the nice thing is a lot of in this time and age, a lot of this stuff is treatable.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
a lot of this stuff is treatable, and so you don't have to live a life of despair. There are effective treatments out there for a lot of these things.
I think, especially for older guys, we just need to open up and be okay with talking about this stuff because, again, I know a guy who has him and his partner, his business partner. They created this device that they swear give women orgasms better than anything out in the market. But when they go to approach it, women are like, yes, they're ready to talk about it because they want to go, yeah, this my old man doesn't satisfy me. Well, the old man doesn't want to hear that, and he goes, we don't need that. I can take care of her. It's like, and it's not something to make them feel like they can't take care of business. It's something to help them to understand here's a better way. Your woman can actually be pleased in a way that that maybe you haven't been able to please her, and so why wouldn't you want to learn about that? Why wouldn't you want to take care of her and give her the pleasure that obviously you've gotten over the years? And
Yeah.
yet you find them very like they close down whenever it comes to their masculinity or their manhood, that they think it's being challenged, and they won't open up. And so maybe we need to take a step back and let it set our ego aside and listen to these things.
I think that probably the most important thing in this whole area of relationships, sexuality, which I think are very much interconnected, is is to have frank conversations about stuff.
I agree.
And if and sometimes they're hard. Sometimes they're hard conversations. If you're a man and your significant other, if it happens to be in a heterosexual relationship, if she says it hurts when I have sex, and yeah, no wonder she doesn't want to have sex
Right.
because it hurts. And why would you do something and you investigate that and you look at it and say, okay, all right, so now we know now that we've identified the issue, let's talk about what the solution is.
Right.
And as I said, there's lots of solutions out there for people that are hurting in this space, and so it's kind of an interesting phenomenon.
Well, I for one am happy. Like I said, I came across your podcast. I think that you're doing a great service that's needed. I want more and more people to be able to, for you to be able to reach them so that they can get this information because I think it'll better their lives, and not just from a positive standpoint, and having the right mindset, but having the information that you have to provide for them so that they can take steps and go, like you just said, identify what the issue is, and now here are the solutions. Now you have something there, you can actually start doing something about it. And I think that's extremely important. So I'm really happy to have you on as a guest today, and I look forward to having you on again and
Oh,
talking about a ton of other topics that I know we could talk about.
all right, I'd be glad to do so.
Well, listen, it was a pleasure. And again, give everybody the websites and everything that they can reach you at and find out this
Sure.
information.
And if it's okay, Kurt, I'll email them to you, and then you can put them in the
Yeah,
program
and
notes.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
everybody knows that because I have this on my YouTube channel as well as every platform on the podcast, and I will provide those links below so
Yeah. So
everybody
yeah,
can
you
find
can
them there.
find me you can see behind me, oldguytalkstome.com. That's where I have my podcast. And the other product, my junk does not work, is the digital information product on erectile dysfunction. And I'll also I'll include the thing to the I'll send you a link so you can put that in the to the product on the at home erectile dysfunction, which is let's just kind of say again. One is that first of all, it's FDA cleared, which is a big deal. Two is it puts out the same shock wave that is essentially the same shock wave that is put out by the in-office Gainswave device.
That's
And
amazing.
Gainswave is the major uh, supplier of shockwave therapy in the world, and one of the reasons they agreed to uh, they disagree is the quality of the device. So they're part of this distribution of this device, but you can get it directly from the manufacturer also at a fraction of the cost. Okay.
Sounds great. All right. Well, all right. So, folks, you don't just have to listen to my podcast. You can go visit Orest over at oldguystalkstome.com and listen to his podcast as well, because he's got some very valuable information, some great guests on there, and you know there's enough people to go around that you can listen to. You know, enough time in your day you can listen to both of us. So, okay.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right. Well, Oris, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Again, I look forward to having you on again sometime in the future. So, folks, thank you very much for joining us. And until next time, take care and stay safe.